Let me say this slowly because some of you need to hear it twice. When someone walks out of your life, when they stop choosing you, when they fail to value you, you didn't lose them, they lost you. See, loss is about value, and you don't lose something you don't recognize the worth of. When they let you go, it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because they couldn't see, handle, or respect what you brought to the table. Too many people walk around blaming themselves for someone else's inability to commit, show up, or love correctly. You replay conversations. You overanalyze your words. You ask yourself, if I just done more, been quieter, been stronger, been easier? Stop right there. The right person is never confused about your value. Here's the truth. Nobody likes to hear. Some people only know your worth after they lose access to you. While you were present, loyal, and consistent, they got comfortable. They assumed you'd always be there. They thought your patience was unlimited and your standards were flexible. And instead of protecting you, they tested you, but listen closely. When someone loses you, they don't just lose a relationship. They lose your support, your love, your presence, your belief in them. They lose the person who showed up when it wasn't convenient, the one who prayed for them, defended them, and saw their potential even when they didn't. And you lose confusion, you lose anxiety, you lose sleepless nights and unanswered questions. You lose the constant feeling of being an option instead of a priority. That's not a loss, that's a release. You see, strong people don't beg to be chosen. They choose themselves. They understand that love without respect is a liability. And walking away from someone who doesn't value you isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Some of you stayed too long trying to prove your worth to someone who was never qualified to measure it. You kept shrinking so they'd stay comfortable. You kept giving while they kept taking. And when you finally stopped chasing, stopped explaining, stopped trying to convince them, that's when they felt the loss. Because absence reveals value. Silence exposes truth, and distance teaches lessons that words never could. Let me tell you something else. The moment you stop seeing yourself as abandoned and start seeing yourself as released, everything changes. Your confidence comes back, your peace returns, your standards rise, and suddenly you realize you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. People who lose you don't lose sleep immediately. At first, they feel relief, freedom, ego satisfaction, but give it time. When life gets heavy, when they need loyalty, when they look for someone who genuinely cared, that's when your absence gets loud. And by then, you're no longer available. Not because you're bitter, but because you've grown. You learn that love should feel safe, not stressful. That effort should be mutual. That being chosen shouldn't require begging. So if someone walked away, let them. If they chose distance, respect it. Don't chase closure from people who gave you confusion. Closure comes from self-respect, not explanations. Remember this, you don't lose people who don't choose you. You gain yourself. And anyone who couldn't see your worth when they had you never deserved the privilege of your presence. Hold your head high. Protect your heart. And never confuse someone's inability to love you with your inability to be loved, because in the end, you didn't lose them, they lost you. Loss is about value, not abandonment. That truth changes everything once you really let it sink in. When someone leaves your life, the first instinct is to assume you weren't enough. You replay moments, conversations, and choices, searching for the mistake that pushed them away. But most of the time, their departure has nothing to do with your inadequacy and everything to do with their inability to recognize your worth. People don't walk away because value disappears. They walk away because they never fully understood what they were holding. When someone doesn't see your value, they treat your presence as optional. They stop protecting the relationship, stop being intentional, and start assuming you'll always be there. That's not because you lacked love, effort, or loyalty. It's because familiarity made them careless. What once felt rare became routine, and instead of cherishing it, they took it for granted. Value unrecognized always ends up mishandled. Being left can feel like abandonment, but abandonment suggests rejection of something unworthy. In reality, many people walk away from good things simply because they are not equipped to handle them. They don't know how to maintain consistency, respect emotional safety, or show up when responsibility is required. So instead of rising to meet the standard, they remove themselves from the situation. That exit is not proof of your lack, it's evidence of their limitation. You can pour love into someone endlessly, but if they don't have the capacity to appreciate it, it will never be enough in their eyes. Some people are uncomfortable with stability. Some are intimidated by depth. Some are addicted to chaos and confusion because that's what feels familiar. When you bring peace, clarity, and genuine care into their lives, they don't know how to receive it. Rather than learning, they leave. It's important to understand that value doesn't decrease because someone fails to see it. A diamond doesn't become worthless because it's in the hands of someone who thinks it's a rock. Your worth is inherent. It exists whether someone recognizes it or not. The pain comes not from losing them, but from giving something precious to someone who didn't know how to hold it. When people leave, it's often because staying would require growth. It would require accountability, consistency, and emotional maturity. And not everyone is willing to do that work. Walking away is easier than becoming better. So instead of facing their shortcomings, they choose distance. That decision is about self-avoidance, not your value. What feels like abandonment is sometimes protection in disguise. When someone who can't value you exits your life, they create space for peace. They remove the confusion, the inconsistency, and the quiet disappointment of being with someone who doesn't fully choose you. Their absence can hurt, but it also stops the slow erosion of your self-worth that happens when you stay where you're not appreciated. Loss also teaches you something powerful about yourself. It forces you to confront the habit of measuring your worth through someone else's acceptance. When they leave, you're given the opportunity to reclaim your value internally instead of outsourcing it. You learn that being chosen by the wrong person is not a victory, and being released by them is not a failure. Over time, clarity replaces pain. You begin to see that the relationship didn't end because you were too much or not enough. It ended because you were offering something real to someone who wasn't ready to be real in return. You were speaking a language they never learned. You were playing by rules they never respected. Eventually, you stop framing the experience as abandonment and start seeing it as misalignment. Two people can care and still be wrong for each other. Two people can connect and still not share the same level of emotional responsibility. When that gap becomes too wide, separation is inevitable. That doesn't make you unworthy. It makes you honest about what you deserve. Walking away is self-respect, not weakness. That idea goes against everything many people are taught about love, loyalty, and endurance. From an early age, you're told that staying proves commitment and that leaving means you didn't try hard enough. So when a relationship becomes confusing, emotionally draining, or one-sided, you convince yourself that patience is strength and silence is maturity. But there is a difference between standing strong and standing still in a place that slowly breaks you. Choosing yourself over confusion and neglect is not giving up, it's waking up. Confusion is not a normal part of healthy connection. When someone truly values you, their actions don't keep you guessing. Their intentions don't change depending on mood, convenience, or circumstance. If you constantly feel unsure where you stand, it's not because you're asking for too much. It's because you're receiving too little. Staying in that space doesn't make you loyal. It makes you invisible. Neglect is often subtle. It doesn't always come with harsh words or dramatic exits. Sometimes it looks like delayed replies, broken promises, emotional distance, or being present only when it's convenient. And because it's quiet, you learn to minimize it. You tell yourself it's temporary, that they're busy, that you're overthinking, but neglect repeated over time becomes a message. It says your needs are optional and your feelings are negotiable. Accepting that is not strength, it's self-abandonment. Walking away requires more courage than staying. Staying allows you to remain in familiar pain. Walking away forces you to face uncertainty, loneliness, and the fear of starting over. That choice demands clarity and self-trust. It means you value your peace enough to risk discomfort. Weakness is clinging to what hurts you because you're afraid of what might happen without it. Many people confuse endurance with love. They believe that if they can tolerate more, sacrifice more, and stay longer, they will eventually be chosen. But love doesn't need to be proven through suffering. Real connection doesn't ask you to shrink, wait endlessly, or accept crumbs in exchange for your loyalty. When you constantly have to explain your worth, you're in the wrong place. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's an act of responsibility. You are the one who lives with the emotional consequences of staying. You are the one who absorbs the anxiety, the self-doubt, and the exhaustion that comes from being half-loved. No one else feels that weight but you. Protecting yourself is not betrayal of the relationship. It's a commitment to your well-being. Walking away also breaks a powerful pattern. It interrupts the cycle of hoping someone will change while you slowly lose yourself. The moment you leave, you send a message, not just to them, but to yourself, that your time, energy, and heart have value. That decision becomes a boundary, and boundaries are not punishments. They are guidelines for how you allow others to treat you. There is wisdom in recognizing when effort is no longer mutual. Relationships require work, but that work must be shared. When you're the only one adjusting, understanding, and forgiving, the balance is already broken. Walking away in that moment is not dramatic, it's honest. It's acknowledging that love cannot survive where respect is absent. Fear often whispers that leaving means you failed, but failure is staying in a situation that repeatedly shows you who it is and hoping for a different result. Growth is accepting reality and choosing differently. Every time you choose yourself, you rebuild trust with your inner voice. You learn that you don't need to be chosen by someone else to be worthy. In time, the guilt fades and clarity takes its place. You begin to see that walking away didn't cost you love, it saved you from losing yourself. Peace replaces confusion, confidence replaces doubt, and you realize that the strongest thing you ever did wasn't holding on, it was letting go. Absence reveals truth and value in ways that presence never can. When you are always available, always understanding, always willing to stay, people rarely stop to consider what life would look like without you. Your effort blends into the background. Your consistency becomes expected. What once felt special slowly turns familiar, and familiarity, when taken for granted, dulls appreciation. It's not because what you offer loses value, but because constant access removes urgency. When someone has uninterrupted access to you, they don't have to reflect. They don't have to miss you. They don't have to face the consequences of their behavior. Your presence cushions their mistakes and softens the impact of their neglect. But the moment you step back, the comfort disappears. Silence replaces noise. Distance replaces routine. And in that space, reality has room to speak. Absence forces comparison. When you're gone, people notice what's missing: the emotional safety, the encouragement, the patience, the way you showed up even when it was inconvenient. These things are hard to measure when they're constant, but painfully obvious when they're gone. Only then do some people realize that what they had wasn't ordinary, it was rare. Truth also becomes unavoidable in absence. While you were present, excuses were easy. Distractions were endless. There was always another conversation, another moment, another chance to delay accountability. But without access to you, they are left alone with their choices. There's no one to deflect responsibility onto, no one to absorb emotional weight. The mirror gets clearer when there's no one else to look at. This is why people often reach out after time has passed, not always because they've changed, but because absence made them feel the loss. They start to understand that what you provided can't be easily replaced. They learn that attention is common, but genuine care is not. That loyalty is rare. That someone who believed in them without conditions doesn't come around often. Absence doesn't just reveal your value to others, it reveals it to you. While you were present, you may have questioned yourself. You may have wondered if you were too much, too sensitive, or asking for too much. But distance clears that fog. You start to see how much you gave and how little you received in return. You recognize the imbalance, not through arguments, but through peace. Being absent also removes the emotional noise that keeps you stuck. When you're no longer in constant contact, you can hear your own thoughts again. You can feel the difference between love and attachment, between effort and obligation. The quiet becomes instructive. It shows you what was draining you and what was sustaining you. It's important to understand that absence is not manipulation. It's not a tactic to make someone miss you. It's a boundary that allows truth to surface naturally. If someone values you, your absence will be felt as a loss. If they don't, your absence will be met with indifference. Either response gives you clarity that presence never could. People often regret after loss because access created illusion. As long as you were there, they believed there would always be another chance, another conversation, another apology without change. But once access is gone, permanence sets in, and permanence forces reflection. They realize that the door they assumed would stay open is no longer available. Absence also teaches an important lesson about timing. Some people only understand value when it's no longer accessible. That doesn't make you wrong for leaving. It makes them late. Your role was not to stay until they learned. Your role was to honor yourself when the cost of staying became too high. Over time, you stop needing them to recognize your value. You already see it. You understand that anyone who needed your absence to realize your worth was never aligned with you in the first place. Absence gave them awareness, but it gave you freedom. You gain yourself when the wrong person leaves, even though it rarely feels that way at first. In the beginning, loss feels like subtraction. It feels like something valuable has been taken from your life, leaving behind silence and unanswered questions. But over time, you begin to realize that what left wasn't meant to stay, and what stayed behind was you. When someone who didn't fully choose you exits your life, they don't take your worth with them. They return it to you. Losing someone who couldn't choose you consistently creates space where confusion once lived. When you're with the wrong person, your energy is often spent trying to understand mixed signals, inconsistent effort, and shifting priorities. You're always adjusting, always hoping, always waiting. Their absence removes that constant mental noise. The quiet that follows can feel uncomfortable, but it's a clean quiet. It's the kind that allows your nervous system to rest and your mind to slow down. In that space, peace begins to grow, not the fragile peace that depends on someone else's mood or availability, but a grounded peace that comes from not having to prove yourself. You no longer wake up wondering where you stand. You no longer measure your worth by response times or half-kept promises. Peace arrives when you stop negotiating for basic respect. Growth follows naturally once peace is established. Without the emotional drain of being half-chosen, you have energy to invest back into yourself. You start reconnecting with parts of yourself that were neglected while you were focused on holding the relationship together. Your confidence rebuilds. Your boundaries strengthen. You become more aware of what you need, what you won't tolerate, and what you truly desire in a partnership. Losing the wrong person also teaches you discernment. You begin to recognize the difference between attention and intention, between words and actions. You stop romanticizing potential and start valuing consistency. The pain you experience becomes information. It sharpens your ability to see red flags early and to trust your instincts when something feels off. What once hurt you now protects you. There is also freedom in no longer being emotionally tied to someone who couldn't meet you at your level. You're no longer carrying the weight of their indecision. You're no longer trying to convince someone to see your value. That freedom allows you to stand fully in who you are without shrinking, explaining, or apologizing for your needs. As you heal, you realize that real love doesn't require chasing. It doesn't leave you guessing or anxious. It feels steady, respectful, and mutual. Losing someone who didn't choose you clears the path for that kind of love to enter your life. Space is not empty, it's intentional. It's room for something aligned to find you. You also gain a deeper relationship with yourself. When the wrong person leaves, you're forced to become your own source of validation. You learn to sit with your emotions instead of distracting yourself with someone else's presence. That self-connection becomes the foundation for healthier relationships in the future. You stop looking for someone to complete you and start looking for someone to complement you. Over time, gratitude replaces regret. You no longer wish things had turned out differently because you see how staying would have cost you your peace. You understand that being chosen halfway is more painful than being released completely. The loss that once felt devastating now feels necessary. In the end, every part of this journey leads back to one simple truth. Your worth was never determined by who stayed or who left. Loss was never about abandonment, but about value being misunderstood. Walking away was never weakness, but self-respect choosing survival over suffering. Absence was never empty, but revealing. And the space left behind was never meant to punish you. It was meant to free you when the wrong person leaves, they don't take anything essential with them. They take confusion, imbalance, and doubt. What remains is clarity, peace, and the chance to grow into the person you were always meant to be. You stop chasing validation and start honoring your standards. You stop explaining your value and start protecting it. Let this be the moment you stop questioning yourself and start trusting what the experience taught you. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, but everyone leaves a lesson. And the greatest lesson of all is this: choosing yourself is never a loss. You didn't fail. You didn't lose love. You didn't miss out. You were released from what couldn't meet you where you stand. And from that place of self-respect and clarity, you don't just move on. You move forward, stronger, wiser, and finally aligned with the love you deserve.